Hi, I'm Earl Reagan from Camping Indiana, and welcome to the tarp video. This subject has come up thousands of times in the 9 years of Camping Indiana, and this year alone 600 or 700 people have asked me about it. So now I'm going to show everybody how it's done, and it's actually very simple. It's a little tedious to try and write out a list and show everything, so this video is going to explain to everybody how this works and how simple it is. And the first part here is in my backyard, and then we're going to go out to Green Sullivan State Forest and actually do a campsite to show everyone how simple this is. And in my opinion, being able to cook in the rain is a fundamentally important part of camping. I mean, you don't always have good weather, and the first thing I do when I get to a campsite is I put my tarp over my fire pit, because you never know when you're going to need it. And if it's not raining, it's a nice place to be in the shade. So there's a whole lot of benefits to doing this. I personally do not have a propane stove or anything like that. I don't want them because I camp primitive, and if I don't have a fire, I don't eat. So this is something I learned from my dad when I was probably 5 years old, and I've been doing it my whole adult life. So we've got the supplies here. I'm going to show everybody how simple the supplies are, and go into an explanation on them, and then we'll get stuff packed up and we'll go out to Green Sullivan State Forest. So let's get started here. I mean, and then, like I said, this is from my daughter, Kelly, who is in the forum, was telling everybody recently in one of the threads about a camping trip we had to Yellowwood State Forest, and the weather was horrible. It was blowing and raining, and there was probably 12 or 14 tents there, and we were sitting there under the tarp, cooking dinner, enjoying ourselves, eating dinner, watching other people pack up, and oh my God, it's raining. And frankly, to be honest, I've seen people on Camping Indiana go, oh, well, it might rain this weekend, we're going to cancel our reservation. Don't. Overcoming stuff like that is how you make memories. My kids can tell you about trips we had 30 years ago, and cooking in the rain or such is still memorable to them. It still makes good stories. And so if you want to make really good memories, learn to overcome that kind of stuff. Camp in the rain, embrace it, put on a raincoat and go on a rain hike. You can see all kinds of wildlife. It's great. So don't fear the rain, just have fun in it. So without further ado, let's get on to the gear. If you want to zoom in, Fran. First thing, super important, reinforced tarp. The reinforced corners will not tear through, and they're a little bit more expensive than a plain tarp, but they're absolutely worth it. And this one's probably 15 years old. You can use a plain tarp, and we're going to use this silver one in the video, but remember that you probably only get 2 to 3 uses out of it before the grommets tear out of the corners. So I highly recommend going with the reinforced. I had a large one, I loaned it to somebody and didn't get it back, so that's why we're going to use the silver one. Secondly is the line tensioner and the rope. This is probably the most important item to make this really simple. These are from Taut Tie, which are not made anymore, which is unfortunate, but there are other brands. REI makes one called the Cord Cam. I think Coghlan's makes them. There is a simple sort of line tensioner made by Coleman. It's not quite as easy to use, but they work.
Hang on, put it back.
So they work real well. They're just not quite as easy, and I will show you in a minute how the line tensioners work. And by way of explanation, I pre-make all my ropes at home before I go to the campgrounds. I keep these ropes are probably 20 years old. I have 4 ropes. I have 2 25-footers and 2 50-footers, because you never know where the trees are going to be, and you might have to string your rope a little bit further. So I have enough rope. I have the knot pre-tied. Now here's a neat trick that most people don't figure on. This knot on the other end is a loop. It's a permanent loop. It's not coming apart, and I'll show you why in a minute that it's so easy to use. And this is just, there'll be a light bulb on over the head moment for everybody. This rope goes through the corner grommet like so, This goes through the other end, and you pull it tight. I think most people call this a cat's paw. Well, got my own rope tangled up. Okay, anyway, you pull this rope tight, and there it is on the corner of your tarp. Easy peasy, no knot to tie. There it is on the corner, easy peasy, no knot to tie, ready for tensioning. Another handy item is called the tarp bungee. You can buy these at Walmart. They're really inexpensive and very simple to use. They go on, they hook, they go back through, and then you have a ball. And you can hook your rope in, you can hook your lines into this, and it gives it a little bit of flex, which is pretty handy. So the line tensioner is super important. And I keep everything in a tote, a plastic tote. I've got my ropes, I've got extra tent pegs, which are going to come in handy, pair of scissors, and that's all you really need. And the other item, let me get them real quick, zoom out. These are telescoping poles, which will come in real handy in this video, and we'll explain to you why. They start this size and they go clear up to 8 feet. I think there's even some that go to 10 feet. And when you get to the campground, you may not have fork trees that's right in the right pattern. You may only have, turn it off. Go. Sorry about that, had to start and stop. There was a train about a half mile from my house and it was drowning everything out. Anyway, these telescoping poles are super important because you use them, you can use them in the corner, and you can you will use it as the center support for your tarp. And now, along with that, since you don't have the big ropes, I'll show you something. This rope is pre-made also, and I make this at home, and they're in my box and ready to go, so that I don't have to fiddle around with it when I get to the campgrounds. But you're going to have to stake this pole out. And again, there's a small permanent loop tied in the top, and it just goes over the point of the telescoping pole, like so. And then you've got 2 guy ropes. Got a couple of guy ropes that you use tent pegs with. Tent peg these, and I've got line tensioners on these too. Tent peg these to the ground, and all of a sudden you've got your pole on a guy rope. Really simple. And I think I've been doing this for so long, I kind of take these skills for granted, and I'm trying to pass this knowledge on to everybody else, so they can enjoy the outdoors like I do, and you can enjoy a fire in a downpour. It's important for the enjoyment of camping. So now I'm going to show you how the line tensioner works. And everyone, this is going to be a light bulb over the head moment for virtually everybody, because they are so simple. And like I said, we've got these taut tie line tensioners, and I'm going to use this tree in my backyard and show you how they work. Turn it off. Okay, here we are at a tree branch in my backyard just to show you how these work. They're so simple, it's unbelievable. Take the line tensioner, go around the tree, like so. It hooks in. And boom, there's your line, nice and tight. It doesn't slip, it doesn't move. It's that simple, people. And if you need to adjust it, you just unhook the front part of it, and you might adjust it back a little bit, hook it back up, and boom, there you go. The line's as tight as can be. It's not going anywhere. And it's just as simple as whipping it around the tree branch. And also, in case anybody's wondering, this is 3/16 rope. I've been using it for a long time, and I have never ever snapped a rope. They just don't break. You're not putting that much tension. You're putting tension on them, but not enough that it's gonna harm them. So there's how the line tensioner works. And the point is when you get to the campground and you're doing this, you lay your tarp over your fire pit. You get your 4 lines hooked in the corner the way I showed you. You hook these around the trees, and then you put in your center pole. You literally have your tarp up in 10 minutes. And like I said, I always do that first when I get to the campsite. I do that before I set up my tent. I do that before I get out my cooking set. And there's times I have set up a tarp in a downpour. I did it at Sycamore Springs once. In fact, that picture that you've all seen of the tarp, the fire, and my tent, it was pouring. It poured all weekend, and I'll tell you, that's one of the best camping trips I've ever had. We had a blast in the rain, and it's a matter of attitude. It's a matter of embracing it and enjoying it instead of fearing it and trying to avoid it. So that's how a line tensioner works. And like I said, super simple. It's a lot easier for me to show you people this than it is to try and write it all out. So that's all the supplies you need. That's it's that simple. The telescoping poles are about 15 bucks a piece. Tarps go from 15 to 25, and then the line tensioners, like the Coleman, you can buy a bag of 10 of them for like $5. So it's pretty simple. Go ahead. Well, we're here at Green Sullivan State Forest near Linton, and this is the Wampler Campground, and it's all primitive. No hookups, no water, no electricity or anything. Anyway, we're here to show you how the tarp goes up. And just by way of mentioning this, I've done this more than 400 times. I have never melted a tarp. I've never burned a tarp. I've had people on the forum go, well, that's dumb. You're going to melt your tarp. Never once have I melted a tarp. You can cook under it. You can have a fire. Now, if you built a 6-foot tall bonfire, yeah, you're going to melt the tarp. But that's not the idea. The idea is to cover yourself from the rain. And to be honest with you, cooking during a downpour is really rewarding. So I'm going to show you here the fire pit's right there, and I've got the tarp positioned roughly where I want it. So it's over the fire pit. I've got my ropes hooked to the 3 trees, and we're going to tighten those ropes up, and then we're going to use a pole on the 4th corner to show you how all this works. So it's just, like I said, it's really easy. You position your tarp, you put your ropes up with your line tensioners. It's still on the ground, so the next step is that you go through and you tighten up your ropes. So after she zooms in a little bit on the ropes, then we're going to shut the camera off, and then I'll tighten the ropes up and show you how the rest of it works. Go ahead. Did it stop? Okay. You be able to zoom in on the ropes?
No.
Huh? Oh, I forgot to mention something. Is it still on? Okay, zoom back in on me. Sorry about that. We're communicating. The other thing I forgot to mention, when you have 2 trees, you got a tree over there and a tree over here, you want to tighten your ropes on opposite trees first, and that starts lifting your tarp up off the ground. So we're going to go through and we're going to tighten those ropes, and we'll be back in a minute when we show you the next step of how all this goes. Okay. Push the red button again. I'm going to show you a real neat trick, make it real simple, and sometimes you might have a rope that's not high enough on the tree. You take your extension pole, grab the point, hook the rope, and just slide it up the tree. It takes a little bit of working it around. Once you get the rope up to where you want it, you're good to go. And one of our members, I believe her name's Andrea, has a real neat trick that involves a extension paint pole, which I thought was really bright. So, if you want to look over here, go ahead and follow me. You want to look over here, the tarp is already floating. The fourth corner is going to need a pole on it. So I have one of our handy dandy extendable poles, and we're going to go ahead and use that in the fourth corner to show you how that works as well. And again, this is so simple. Put the point through there, get the pole about where you want it. I forgot to grab some tent pegs. You hook your pre-made loop on top of the pole, like so, and the table's going to be in the way. But that's part of the fun of camping. So, you get your ropes. Get your ropes ready. Should have untangled these before I started the camera. Okay, got your ropes ready. Grab you a couple of tent pegs, and you basically just want to go 90 degrees out from the pole. Hook it in your line tensioner. Bring it out here. Pull it tight so there's tension against it. You can back up. No, you can back up the camera. So there's tension on it, and you simply put the stake in the ground, like so. And there's one rope for the pole. Get your second peg, same thing, go 90 degrees out. Well, you're going to tie a knot. Go 90 degrees out. Get your tent peg. Pull it tight. And you notice the pole is still leaning a little bit, which is cool. So you get it in the ground. And there you have your pole and your guy ropes. So, you go back, you straighten the pole up, and voila, you have a tight spot. Now, shut off. Okay, so we got all of our ropes tensioned up. You can see we got it up on the trees, and we'll zoom out in a minute. And sometimes you have to adjust the rope, sometimes you have to fiddle around a little bit, sometimes you might want to change pegs, but you see the pole's in there and holding a fourth corner. Now, this is going to make all of you laugh. We're going to use a center pole this time to raise the center height of the tarp. And I had a user get all nasty with me and said, "You're really stupid, that point's going to poke a hole in the tarp and it's going to leak all over you. And boy, are you dumb." And then I pointed out how you actually use this. Turn the pole over. Ha ha ha! Use this point in the ground, and that keeps it from moving around, and you use the smooth end against the tarp. And I pointed that out to him, and he said, "F you, you're rotten, you think you know everything." And I just like, no, just experienced. And then he left the forum. It made me laugh. But it is really that simple. Turn the pole over, like so, jam the point in the ground, and I'll show you how this works. I'm going to go in here. Alrighty then, there it is, people. Tarp's up. It will stand up to heavy rain, heavy wind, hail. It will not melt. It's simple to put up, and I've done this probably 400 times. And as you can see, I used a center pole, I used a corner pole, and after we're done talking, I'm going to go ahead and show you a few close-ups of the line tensioners and stuff. But anyway, this can save your weekend. If you're relying on a fire to cook like I do, and it's raining, cooking a good meal underneath the tarp in the rain is a great experience. It's very rewarding. It's very satisfying. You feel a sense of accomplishment, and it's just visceral. It's gut level, super enjoyable. And if you're out camping and you're not using a fire pit and you're using a Blackstone or whatever, you should at least try this a couple times. This is the real deal outdoor experience. This is real life out in the backwoods, and this is how you have your tarp up for the weekend. Now see, this weekend it's clear and sunny. I still would have put the tarp up. And Fran here has been camping since she was 16, and she told me when I did this for her the first time that she had never seen anybody do that. She's camped in Indiana, she's camped in Texas, and she'd never seen anybody do this.
That's right.
And so she was kind of blown away by it too. I've shown a few people how to do it, and they've all taken off on it. Funny story, I was down at Paintown about 7 or 8 years ago. My ex-wife and I were camping, and a storm came in the middle of the night, and we were out on that little point where there's only tents. And I had my tarp up, of course. So when we get up, the fire pit's dry. I stoked up the fire, started making coffee, got stuff ready for breakfast. And I was watching everybody else in there was packing up their wet tents, rolling out their wet sleeping bags, and grumbling. And I'm sitting there underneath my tarp during a moderate rain, cooking bacon and eggs and hash browns and toast and hot coffee. And we were sitting there eating, and she elbowed me, and she said, and she had a smirk on her face, and she said, "Look at them, they're all eating cold Pop-Tarts." And I just laughed. But that's what your choices are. You can either adapt and overcome to the weather, or you can let it scare you and fear it and run away from it. This, like I said, gives you a huge sense of accomplishment. It's super simple, and just to recap, you need your extension poles, rope, line tensioners, reinforced tarp, tent pegs. That's it. I mean, there's not a whole lot of supplies. I would suppose all the supplies will equal probably under 60 bucks. And you will not melt the tarp. Like I said, I've done this 400 times, and I have never ever melted a tarp. So when we're done talking here, I'm going to take the camera up and show you a few close-ups of the line tensioners and the center pole, and then I hope you all learned something. It's been super enjoyable for me to do this for everybody. Our next video is going to be about campfire cooking, probably be in a week. Fran, do you have anything to add?
No, just the director.
She's just a director. Anyway, so we're glad you're all here, and feel free to ask questions, post any comments, you know, just feel free to do as you wish, and happy camping. Show it off. Okay, there's the corner pole with its 2 guy ropes and stuck to the ground with stakes. And then over here is the center pole that's holding the center of the tarp up so that you get plenty of headroom. And like I said, this will stand up in a downpour. Over here we have the line tensioner. The line tensioner is where it's supposed to be, and the line has gone around the tree. And yeah, you probably have to adjust it once or twice. I mean, there's a learning process involved. And then we'll look at this other tree over here. To rope around that tree and your line tensioner. And then from here, as you can see, the tarp is over the fire pit. You can cook in a downpour and be perfectly happy. And this is how you make memories. My kids will talk about a trip that we had 35 years ago, or 30 years ago, that was in a downpour and how we were cooking. So this is a really enjoyable thing to do, and this will save your weekend. And even if you're not cooking on it, you just want to have a campfire and it's raining, this is great. And it's very satisfying to sit underneath the tarp and watch the downpour while you have a nice fire going. So I hope everybody learned something, and like I said, feel free to ask questions and leave comments, and we'll go from there. Thank you, everybody.